Well, welcome everyone, and I'm Temple Hayes. And wow, it is the year 2026. Oh my goodness, when we were kids, that number was just so huge. Well, we are growing into it more and more every day. And fortunately for us, we have people like TJ Woodward, and he's helping us on this journey. So it's such a pleasure to be here with you. And TJ, thank you for creating this wonderful energy for us to share together as fellow Leo people.
Yes, fellow Leos. Well, thank you, Temple. And you know how much I love being in conversation with you. And each month we come together with a different topic. And you and all your brilliance came up with the title Nothing to Fix in 2026. So I just think that's such a great thing to, we're well into the new year now, 20 days, but we're still in January. So we can still say we're here to anchor our intention for the year. And starting with knowing there's nothing to fix is brilliant.
On that particular day, that probably sounded really good. I'm thinking tonight I'm on a show and these things are scheduled a long time ago. And
Yeah.
it's like, what do you want to fix in 2026? So no intention to be confusing, that's for sure. But yeah, nothing to fix in 2026. So we're holding this template, the everything for all of you listening and those of you that are sharing what you're hearing. The intention is that you have everything you need, and you are an individuation of energy, of vitality. You're dynamic. It's owning that. And that's the way in your psychology that TJ and I are referring to that. Obviously, in our humanity, we can always improve, we can make adjustments, but the bigger side of us, the greater essence of who we are, we have everything we need. We were born with it. If we are being the original idea that we were created to be. What do you think, TJ?
Well, absolutely. And for me, I was reflecting on the title and thinking about what got created when I believed I was damaged and broken and I was trying to fix it. And it was
Mhm.
just a struggle, it was just a struggle and life was a struggle until the day I realized it didn't need to be. Because I came into the world, as you said, a whole, complete, and perfect spiritual being, and my life is now about returning to that, acknowledging that, living from that. And so I think a lot of times the mind might think something like, well, if there's nothing to fix, how do we improve? But the truth is, when I believe I'm broken and there's something to fix, I get stuck. When I say, hey, there's something within me that's unharmed and unharmable, there's something so powerful, that is when life becomes much easier. It doesn't mean things don't happen in our life, but when I believe I'm broken, I see the world is broken. I think the world needs to be fixed. When I understand who and what I am, everything becomes so much easier that we can be in the flow then instead of in the like, how do I get through this? How do I change myself? And how do I change the world?
I love that. I love that. And I'm getting this kind of insight that we're talking internal value.
Right.
Inside ourselves, we are whole, we are wonderful, we have talents, we have gifts, maybe some gifts we don't even know about yet. However, the external, right? The external, when we approach it with a sense of an inner brokenness, that's how we see everything outside ourselves. We attract friends that we feel are broken. We attract situations or jobs or marriages where it's half people coming together, hopefully to create a whole something. Whereas what we are saying is within ourselves, we are whole. Now, if you are a person coming out of the holidays and celebrations, and maybe you've had more sugar or sugar at all, and you're recovering from that, or you're grieving something very seriously, or you're grieving what you perceive or what you know is going on around you in your country or whatever it is, you may be going through moments of anger that you haven't felt in a while, discouragement that you haven't felt in a while. We're not talking about being robots, but we're talking about a core. We're talking about the 75% of you that knows all is well. All is well. Say that with me and TJ. All is well. And that's where you start. I've had so much fun living in New Orleans. It's TJ, it's been a year.
Wow, that is wild to me.
Okay, yeah, we bought the house in December. So it's been a year. But anyway, New Orleans is called lots of things, but it's called the Big Easy. And from the moment we plan to move here, we have said with that intention, it's easy here. It's got to be because they call it the Big Easy. So a belief system then opens the way, right? And
Yes.
it's been like that with everything we have approached. It's been easy, whether it's the handyman or traffic or, whatever it is, it has an easy button on it. And that's what we're inviting you to do for 2026 is to have a very strong belief that there's nothing to fix because what will that make you do? It will make you breathe into your consciousness all the great things you're grateful for in your life. Back to you, TJ.
Well, of course, I love that and totally agree because I spent so long thinking that life was a struggle. And of course, life was a struggle. Now,
Yes.
when I was new into some of these teachings, I thought that if I would have heard you early in my process, I would think, well, she's just talking about magic. Like, you're just going to change your thinking and suddenly everything's going to change. The world still has all this stuff going on. I don't know how that's possible. Then I started practicing it and started realizing that what we're not saying is everything in the world will instantly change, but my relationship with the world does change. And that can take time or that can happen instantly. And happening instantly is a decision to say, I have everything within me, not only to work with and walk through, but to really change what I call reality. And when I understood that life is what we call it, everything changed. And it really is, of course, magic on some level. It does feel like magic. As a matter of fact, in a couple of my books, I write about the levels of consciousness, and I call moving out of martyr consciousness into magical thinking because suddenly everything feels magical. Then there's a deepening. Then there's an awareness that, like, wow, it's not so much what's happening outside of me, but more how I'm viewing it and the frequency and the energy I'm bringing to it. And when I've done enough of my own, whether we call it healing or recovery or wellness or therapy, I start to understand, wow, I am holding a projector and I am seeing the world through the lens. And when I clean that lens and realize, as Temple said, it can be as simple as like, everything is working in divine order. Everything is working for me. Those are some of the affirmations I have used. Gratitude is an interesting one because I used to think gratitude was pretending like nothing difficult was happening. Then I started understanding that in the midst of anything happening, whether we call it pleasant or unpleasant, being the frequency of gratitude actually changes my experience of it. So I would just say, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe. Thank you, source. Thank you, love. Thank you, God. Those words are interchangeable for me. Find the word that works for you and see what gratitude does. Because for me, that's how we start to change the lens. And then suddenly there's so much love everywhere. I've been really aware of what we call the news, and it's about 0.00001% of what's happening on Earth that we think is so important in the news. But most of what's happening on the earth is love, connection, family, joy, happiness, and then the other exists as well. So being able to understand that I'm holding the projector is such a powerful, I was going to say a powerful first step, but it's the one that I keep stepping with. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know a changing moment for me was 38 years ago when I was coming into sobriety, and my boyfriend, he was sober. For some reason, I assumed he had been sober a long time. Years later, I realized he was a year before me. But the point of the story is that he would sit down every morning and write 50 things that he loved about himself. And he said, "Why don't you do that?" And I'm like, I didn't want to tell him. I was vulnerable. I was embarrassed. I was like, I can't think of like 10 things, let alone 50, and yet I kept pushing past the uncomfortable to the comfortable and listening and I went, okay, I love my smile, I love my eyes. And so I would be, walking downtown or something, and somebody would come up to me and go, I love your eyes. They are so different. So then it's the what we're talking about, kind of the premise of today is the internal is changing the external, right? And it reminds me of a story of a man and wife. They're sitting and having breakfast, and new neighbors have arrived, and the wife is being very nosy. And she said, I can't believe that woman is hanging up those sheets and they're not even clean. And her husband went, oh, Doris, mind your own business. And so a week or two later, here she goes again. I cannot, how can she think to hang up these clothes and they're dirty? That is just ridiculous. Couple of weeks go by. She says it again. Wow, look, somebody must have talked to her. Her sheets are clean and look very bright. He said, honey, I washed the windows this morning.
That's right.
Right? I just love that because and I think that's part of being an inner healer is having those stories that you can grab on special occasions and remember them. So if I hear myself getting into a rant about, can you believe that? And that is that, it immediately before I overshare, it's like, let me check in with me. Where is it with me? How am I thinking about myself? Do you listen to Joe Dispenza?
Some, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've really been into that practice. I believe I already was, but I expanded it through listening to the first 7 minutes of starting your day and just being a great gatekeeper and really thinking about the joy to be alive, the bright sun, all the things just filled with positivity. And it's amazing. It really is.
It
Back
is.
to you, TJ.
It changes everything because I start to understand that what I focus on is what I see. And I used to think, can it be that simple? And I started understanding that yes, in some ways it was so simple. And at the same time, there was a point when the deepening was, oh, I still have this stuff that I haven't resolved from my past. And that's really what's causing the window to be dirty, if you will. Right.
Mhm.
Because I still have these ideas. She shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. How could I have done that? Shame, all the different things that were coloring, using that metaphor again, that was what was causing the window to be dirty. We don't come in with dirty windows, right? We have this beautiful way of seeing the world, and then the world starts putting things on there. And then, you know, maybe it is just as simple as getting out the power hose and washing that off. And sometimes it feels much deeper than that for me. Sometimes it's like, okay, I've been carrying this story around for so long, and I keep seeing it outpictured in everything that I experience. And then I started asking myself, what if it's not about is this right or wrong, but simply looking at what gets created when I have this story about myself? And some of
Right.
my favorite stories were I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. Even saying them today, I actually feel it in my body. I can feel that. I'm like, ooh, I used to walk around reciting that over and over and over again. No wonder my posture was like this. No wonder I didn't feel energized. I think I was more exhausted at 25 than I am at my age now because there's so much that has been lightened. And sometimes that is really, really filled with joy. And sometimes that's in the fetal position, crying and sobbing and realizing that the greatest grief I think I've ever gone through, Temple, is to acknowledge how long I've carried these stories and
Mm.
how they have been like this really painful, comfortable garment that I've been wearing that's kept me. I think about like a weighted blanket. You have like this weighted blanket that's supposed to help you, but like a weighted blanket with all the past stories. And like, when am I gonna just finally take that jacket off and say, that's not even true. These are lies I've been carrying. And as I make peace with that, as I start to look at the way I see the world, suddenly the world is just filled with opportunity. And we move from the idea of pathologizing. I have a phrase every year, and the phrase for this year is from pathology to possibility. That's going to be the
Mm.
theme of our emergence conference this
That's a
year. And
good one. Wow,
right?
that's a good
And
one.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, possibility. There's endless possibilities, but when I decide something is as it is and what it is, that's what I experience.
Oh, I love that. That is so powerful. It's really claiming the territory, isn't it? I was visiting my little goddaughter. Well, she's no longer little. Maybe in my mind she is. She's 10. But I was saying to her, I said, yeah, I feel a little sad to be leaving you. And she looked at me and she said, I just don't want to be sad anymore. Right?
Wow.
And I thought, you are so right. And I hear that sometimes from her,
Mm.
echoing in my awareness. It's like, I just don't want to be sad anymore. There's so much living to do. And I think that, I mean, what I find, and maybe it's true for you, with a lot of people I know, and sometimes with myself, we forget we kind of poo-poo things, like, well, that's ridiculous. Of course you're going to be sad sometimes. It's just it's the fact of both and. Yes, there's windows that we are going to be sad. Someone we love dies, a career dies, a something dies, it passes. But there's a time and a place, to do the work and let it work through us and then come to a new plateau within ourselves. And at some point, it's owning that we are the ones that are making the decision, right?
Yes.
And carrying it on. And, no matter how many people wanted to make Wayne Dyer wrong, when he said, when you change the way you look at things, you know,
Yeah.
the way you're looking at things change.
Yeah.
And it's something to that effect. Sorry, Wayne, paraphrasing. When I change the way I look at things,
The things I look at change.
pink. There you go.
Yes.
See, it just takes both of us. That's all there is.
That's right.
Well,
How many
at least
Leos does it take to make a quote?
at least people know we're not following a script. We're just coming from our heart, so all is well.
It's interesting. I was hearkening back to a book that I read, and I met the authors, and these wonderful two men that came to speak at a Unity I was involved with years and years and years ago, and it is called "How We Choose to Be Happy." And they had done this extensive research on happiness, and one of the characteristics, and they call it the choices. I think there are seven. I'm sorry, guys, it's been a while since I've read your book, but there are seven choices. Maybe there's 10, maybe there's 12 choices of truly happy people. And one of them is to feel their feelings deeply. Because it's in the avoidance, and then there's obviously more, but when you said that, that really rang true for me because, yeah, I'm going to have the experience of sadness. And if I allow myself to actually lean in and feel it, it moves through me. And then I go back to my natural state of joy. If I say things like, oh, I shouldn't be sad, or oh, they shouldn't have died. I mean, what could be more futile than that? I mean, we live on a planet where that happens. Sometimes it's shocking, sometimes it's jarring to our system, sometimes it's expected. If I allow myself to actually feel and feel it deeply, I actually do move through it. And that's really different than having a framework of pretending. And that I was that for a while in my spiritual
Oh
journey.
yeah.
Everything
It's
is
all
love and
fun.
light,
It's
peace.
all wonderful. Row, row, row your boat. It's all just magic. Oh yeah, I'm with you. I remember a woman asking me one time. She saw me at Carnegie Hall. That's how I met her. And I spoke, and she said, "You're the most joyful person I think I've ever met. How do you do it?" And I said, "Well, thank you and all that. Won't carry you through all that." But I said, to me, joy is not the absence of something else. That you can be joyful all the time while there's other emotions asking for your attentiveness, right? And you look at the Buddhist monks right now that are walking, across the nation, and with all this energy and people yelling and screaming and yay and here you, but yet they're walking for peace, and inside they're holding and containing the silence.
Yes.
Otherwise they would be up on a mountain just but they're bringing the containment of peace
Yes. And
in the
that's,
midst of,
yeah.
because see, that's true peace. True peace too is when you learn and you're educated about not letting breaking news break you,
Mhm.
because you realize there's a lot of people fueled wanting to make a living, and the more they can get you down on your knees, the more they are successful, because they'll own you. If you start buying into everything on your feed and everything that comes, and it's like people are, social media is good, but it also requires you to be aware of it
Yes.
and to know your own intelligence and ask the divine, is this for real? Is this the way it really is? Because it's like you said, we only have a 0.0001% of what it is in the first place. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah. And the choice to be present. I love what you're saying. There's so many different things you said that I think are so important and powerful. I'm going to go back and just watch that last little bit and re-listen to what you said, because all of these are constant reminders of where I put my attention, right?
Mhm.
Where do I put my attention? It's not pretending, because I did that in that phase, like pretending like everything's love and light. No, there are things that are painful that happen. There are things that my mind might say this shouldn't be happening, but then I can catch that and say, okay, it is though.
Yeah.
Now what? Now what do I want to offer and what do I want to bring? And when I'm in the resistance or the fight or I go back to like 2,500 years ago, Buddha taught that there's a difference between pain and suffering. And it's so simple, and yet it's so true today. And it's true for me every day. Pain is an experience that happens, and suffering is my point of view about that pain. And you said that, I know what you said that's so
Mhm,
important.
mhm,
You said
mhm.
that the emotion is wanting some kind of attention. And so, like, if I look at emotions as an internal guidance system, I can say, oh, I wonder what's wanting to be felt. I wonder what's wanting to be revealed. Let me lean in and feel that instead of
Mhm.
trying to avoid it and get rid of it, which we could also call addiction. Let me not feel that. Let me feel more of what feels good and less of what feels quote unquote bad. And, back to a basic Buddhist concept,
Yeah.
suffering comes from clinging and
Oh
aversion.
yeah, it's like watching a baby, right? I mean, one minute, ha 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 ha. The next minute, the next, and they go from one to the next to the next to the next, and it really, in the surrounding areas of safety, belonging, okayness, how one learns the appropriateness of that is how one develops, in their life. And the beauty is it's never too late. We're all born constantly, and we're all dying constantly, and we're all being reborn constantly. It's this ebb and flow, but it's us owning that.
Yeah,
And I love what you're saying, because it isn't the emotion, it's the judgment of the emotion
right.
that takes its toll. Um, it just takes its toll. I want to say something about arthritis, but I'm not. So I'm going to let that go.
Well, I
That's
mean, we
it.
know it shows up in the body too, right?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
how I'm perceiving myself shows up in the body, it shows up in my thoughts, it shows up in the way I relate to my emotions. And we know that like we're truly integrated. And as I'm anchored in spirit and I'm anchored in this knowing that all is well, and I think if nothing, as we, come to a close-ish on our conversation, if no one's heard anything, listen to what Temple said, all is well. That right there is so powerful. Perhaps you can try this on for the next 24 hours. Notice if you have a judgment. Reflect, take a deep breath. All is
All
well.
is well.
All is well.
All
All
is
is well with
well.
me
All
and the
is
world.
well. And watch as I have been practicing more so um, with my morning practice.
Yeah.
Before I ever enter into a room where my wife is or where other things are going on, I just stay in my space and I just surround myself in that loving light of the divine. And I give thanks for life. And I look out the window and I go, look at the magic of nature. And wherever the attentiveness leads, in a way of, as you said, not fake gratitude, but sincere, deep gratitude. Oh my, we have so much to be thankful for. And just that just starts the whole, we become mathematicians. We multiply well, right? Those feelings, those thoughts, and we start seeing them more and more. And anyway, I love being with you.
I love being with you. And I was thinking about waking up in the morning and thinking like everything around us is so miraculous, but we've started to believe that it's just the norm. Well, because it is the norm, the sunset, the sunrise, the beautiful, like all the beauty that's around us. And when I focus on that and I lean into the gratitude, and then for me, the next question I ask in the morning is, how can I serve today?
Yeah.
Not what can I change today or what can I do today, but how can I serve today? How can I serve this greater knowing that we are all powerful creators of our own reality? And that then creates this beautiful, not only a ripple effect, but it changes consciousness itself. So I know we could keep talking for hours, but I appreciate you, Temple. I
You
love our
and
time
Ricky
together.
Byers. How can I serve today, Great Spirit?
This is the second time I've been talking that her name came up today. So, Ricky, we love you.
She's coming through, I
Yeah.
mean, for those of you listening, download some of her music. It's very powerful. It's very inclusive. Ricky Byers.
Yes. Well, look at that. Well, Temple, thank you so much. And everyone who has been watching or listening, if you're watching this in the replay, ask questions in the comments and Temple and I will answer. So thank you, Temple. You're amazing.
Thank you, love.
Okay,
See
peace
you
and
soon.
blessings.
Peace and blessings.